Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ruckus and The Menace podcast. I am Ruckus, always causing a ruckus,
And I'm Ruckus the Menace.
and tonight we have some amazing. Well, I don't know. Amazing is pretty subjective, but here I think we're amazing. We have some good content for you guys tonight, as far as talking about the World Series, the NFL news, and other stuff. But right now, Spanish, what are you up to?
Well, the biggest thing was that the reason why we had a short a shorter podcast was I had to continue work, or I had some overnight work that I was doing at my job. So we had to record on Monday. So that kind of gave us a little bit of a longer break, but with that I did that did a weekend away in Roanoke for my fiance for her birthday. Then now it's preparing for people or for friends of hers to come up into town next weekend. And a lot of a lot of things are kind of happening all at once. So gaming for me this especially this past week has kind of been at a little bit of a premium. And and we're but the funny thing is that a lot of people, not very many people are going to know this until Friday evening around back home. But I have gotten a contact and I am going to be back on the sport journalism front for one night only for a high school football game on Friday night.
That sounds like fun.
Yep. And it's a game that has some West Virginia State playoff implications. So my hands are definitely full, and it was a newspaper in Morgantown that got in contact with me. So I'll be getting my SSAC pass on Friday from my old sports editor, so I can so I can try and pull this thing off
Yeah.
and see what
Did you
and
say
see
it
how
was
I
a high
do
school
after 7 years
football?
of wrestling. Yes, it is a high
Okay.
school football game.
That's what I thought I heard. I just wanted to double check.
Yep. Yep. So if you see things from my Twitter that involve West Virginia prep football, do not be alarmed. I am I am back doing that side of it for a night. It is not it is not a true homecoming back. It's it's a guest spot.
Oh,
So,
way to disappoint the viewers. Come on. No, I'm just kidding.
well, I would love to be back for it, but I mean, the thing is that like the reason why I left it at first was just because money and opportunity weren't quite right, and actually, and oh, I'm not going to discuss too much on that,
That's okay.
I mean but it's going to be nice to have that, and puts a little puts a little bit extra in puts a little bit extra money available that I'm probably just going to straight up not even see it.
Yeah.
Like
There's
the only
sometimes
thing
I'll
I'll
get.
see is the check.
Yeah, the only I rarely get like IT gigs that I do from time to time, but I also just leave it to like friends and family to ask for help. Like I don't like have a business thing that says, "Hey, like contact me if you need IT help or whatever." But like every once in a while, I'll get like a family friend or relative that's like, hey, I have this problem and I was wondering if you could help me solve it. And it's like, all right, well, I need this information and this information. But yeah,
Oh, I don't. Yeah, I don't get these very often. This is the first time in 7 years away from the biz that I've gotten one.
yeah,
And I mean, I've been to a few different games in town, but this is the first time I've actually gotten one and done anything with it. So,
yeah,
but
I
it was
got you.
just yeah. So that was definitely a big. Like it was a big ask. I received the message Monday afternoon. Didn't know if I wanted to respond to it. Responded to it Tuesday morning, and rest is history from there. But
Yeah.
what else has been going on with you, Ruckus?
Um, a little bit of stuff. As far as entertainment stuff that I've been doing, I've just been besides the podcast, um, just been watching some Halloween films, the John Carpenter stuff, mainly, and watching other stuff on YouTube that randomly pops up in my feed from time to time. Uh, I paid a little bit too much attention to the trade deadline yesterday. Um,
I think we both did.
and then I played some other games like Battlefield and my usual stuff that I play. Um, I recently got a Steam Deck, so I've been trying to tinker around with that and understand how the operating system works, and also how to like run emulators and stuff on it, so I could play games from the PlayStation 2 era, the Nintendo Entertainment System era, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System era, and many more. But I got Ratchet and Clank on there. I got all sorts of cool games I really want to play again from my childhood that were a lot of fun. Yeah. Other than that, like, um, we'll see what happens here in the future. But yeah,
I
I also
think
had like
the only
I had a random car repair too. That was fun.
yeah, I think the only major game that I've really sunk a bit of time into has been the new Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope game. And that one for me, it's probably going to be a part of that Two Nerds in a Pod thing that I've got probably coming up here in about a couple months. And nice guy, and I'll probably be back and forth on that. But that will be definitely. I'll be putting that through the review ringer probably within the next like week or two. I've been playing been sinking a good amount of hours into it, and I'm really enjoying it because it's tactical strategy, and I don't mind doing that because it's almost like you're playing like a game of like I love those tactical strategy games anyway where you need cover to kind of do things, but then different abilities kind of work the same way. It's like and you do a little bit of thinking along the way, and then I'm also trying to prepare and anticipate for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet here in about 2 weeks. So I've got want to try and get as many of these projects done as I possibly can, so that once Pokemon Scarlet and Violet come out, time sync.
Yeah, and man, I was a little butthurt today finding out that Atomic Heart was delayed till February. But I honestly wasn't that surprised because I saw on the Steam page the other day that their release date was this winter, and I was like, shit. What do they mean by this winter? Like, when does winter start? And then apparently it's like December 21st, maybe, or 18th is when winter starts, and I was just like, oh, maybe they're like trying to like say like, oh, available like for Christmas, like Merry Christmas, guys. No, It's coming out in February, and I was like,
Like right
damn
after
it.
the first of the year, right after the first of the year, so they actually can take a break on Christmas and not have to crunch their way through it and actually enjoy a holiday with their families.
Right, I'm not saying that it was a bad thing that they delayed it and got more time. I was just a little. I was anticipating to play it in December, but that's okay. I'm always for waiting for games, but sometimes a long wait is kind of unbearable. Cough, cough. Star Citizen.
I was gonna say Cyberpunk 2077,
That works
but
too. At least that actually released with
yeah.
a full.
But now we go from the pregame warm ups and into the starting lineup. And do we want to? And we kind of want to do a little bit of the World Series stuff because Game Three, it Game Three initially was rained out on Monday, and we are currently in Game Four right now. The Phillies had dominated Game Four or Game Three. Now the Astros lead 5-0 after 5 innings in Game Four right now as we speak.
Yeah, and
So
I just
the
saw a notification saying that the Astros scored 5 runs in the fifth inning.
Oh wow, so they just it
I
took a
was like,
little bit of
I was just
it
checking the
took a
score.
little bit of yeah, it took a little bit of took a little bit of time for him to get there, but I think this series is going to be good. I am still standing pat at Astros in 6. I mean, and the funny thing is that there's this guy on Twitter that so far up to this point, he's gotten the last 2 World Series winners right, and he's predicted over a 10-year span. He actually is predicting the Phillies to win the World Series. There's 2 points in time where the Mariners win the World Series, and in 2029 he says that the Orioles will get one.
Start buying the World Series tickets now, Spinnis. I know they're not on sale yet, but keep your savings. That or just wait till the Red
um,
Sox go back to the postseason.
I I would love to see that day, but we're in a little bit of an interesting state of events when it comes to that as a whole.
Yeah.
However, we now have kind of in speaking of baseball, got a few manager hirings going on right now. Looks like the White Sox are set to hire Royals Pedro Grifol
Ooh, that's a
as
good
a
one. Pedro Grafal.
Pedro Grifol as the White Sox manager.
I didn't see that coming. It's better than having a man and his lazy boy just snoozing, taking a nap.
And then the Royals got the Rays bench coach Matt Quatraro.
I think you said
So
it right
there's
the
a little
first
bit
time.
of yeah. No, there's an R. No, there's an R in between the. It's Quatraro. It
Oh,
looks
okay.
like because there's an R between the T and the A. And then Nolan Arenado has won his 10th Gold Glove and has now opted in for his next year in his contract. The late Pedro Gomez, the ESPN reporter whose career has spanned 35 years and covered more than 25 World Series, has been inducted posthumously into the Arizona Sports Hall of Fame the other night, which is a I think that's a very, very good thing. I mean, because we used to have a lot of Pedro Gomez was something that we were listening to like whenever we would watch ESPN coverage of major sporting events as we were kids. And we were like, oh, it's just Pedro Gomez. It's like it's not important. It's not like Tim Kirkachen. He's not like Tim Kirkagin, where it's like this guy's the guy. Pedro Gomez was one of
Here's
like,
a guy. No, I'm just kidding.
no. We're not going into the Cringensworth. We can stop with the Collinsworth now. That's kind of
Stop
not where
it.
I was looking at.
Stop it. That's just
But
terrible, Ernie.
but um but that's but that's a huge thing that I just kind of saw pop up. I'm like, yeah, I think we should mention that. Um
Yeah, I was like, I haven't seen him very much anymore, and then I was like, oh, yeah, about that.
oh, did you see the latest thing on the Kansas Jayhawk basketball though?
Yeah, they suspended the Bill Self and someone, I think the recruiter for the Jayhawks for 4
Yeah,
games.
one of the assistant coaches 4 games into recruit into the corruption stemming from 2017, where it was the Adidas NCAA violations. There was a 17-year-old that was charged in the shooting of Brian Robinson, the Commanders running back, and then you've got Steve Nash and the Nets parting ways, but it's very interesting who is rumored to be the leading candidate to fill the vacancy, according to Woj. It is former Boston Celtic head coach Ime Udoka.
The Nets just care about winning. They don't really care about morality, I guess. Who knows?
Eh,
At
I
least you'll
mean,
actually have a coach instead of a player that just kind of acts like a coach. Because Steve Nash
I
most
mean,
of the time looked like he was getting pushed around.
I mean, it's the Nets is for your first head coaching job at the NBA level to be the Brooklyn Nets, and you've got egos like Kyrie Irving, James Harden, who was there for a brief stint, Ben Simmons, who is about as broken can get because he can't shoot. He can really only dribble the ball. Um,
Somehow he has a good dental plan, though. Oh, wait, no, he's Australian. Bad joke. Ignore me.
oh my. Um, but Ime Udoka is rumored to be the leading candidate to fill that vacant spot. Um, I now actually, and then my favorite news of because the Commanders fan base might soon be able to have more reasons to hold their left hand up and cheer, as the Snyders have hired Bank of America Securities to look at potential sale options, whether it be a full sale or trying to go to minority owners. It is unknown. However, it is a little alarming and could be more reasons to force Snyder out if he is dealing with financial improprieties involved, as Ruckus goes into his blood money jokes again.
Eh,
As the
I don't want to
Commanders
be.
are
I'm not being a dead horse.
um as the Commanders are under investigation yet again, because the NFL doing their probe over the sexual harassment things, and then I think this is also a yet again by the feds and this time it's more so regarding the financial issues of the Commanders. So this so while there could be possibilities of looking for the Snyders to sell the team, hopefully that Lord willing they do. But the financial improprieties may eventually be the thing that probably does them both in and probably forces them out. and it's gonna probably require a whole top to bottom rebuild. But I think it's gonna be at this point better to crush the head of the snake and then try and rebuild ourselves than to have the head of the snake still be around and we're dealing with all of this. In dealing with all of this.
Yeah. You
But the
still
fun
you
part, but
Sorry, I was about
our
to just
I think we
ask
should
about the
end.
XFL.
But I know that the Snyder stuff is definitely heavier. But do we want to end this on a much lighter note?
Yes, we do.
The XFL, though, this time being run by The Rock.
Do you smell what he's cooking?
I mean,
Sorry,
this
let
is.
me rephrase that. Do you smell what the Rock is cooking? There you go. See, sorry, headphone listeners, but just had to do it. Couldn't pass it up.
I'm sorry, but what in the blue heck was that?
That was what the Rock
It
was
doesn't
cooking.
matter what the heck that was.
I love how you just went full pitch. I'm sorry, Dennis.
Oh no, I that was the intent of why I did that.
Oh.
But the XFL's officially like under the rock, the cities and teams have been named for it. The Dallas Renegades are now officially the Arlington Renegades, but they are returning. The DC Defenders come back, the St. Louis Battlehawks, Houston Roughnecks, and Seattle Sea Dragons return. But three teams kind of change as the Vegas Vipers, formerly of Tampa Bay, the New York Guardians are now in Orlando, and a new team of the San Antonio Brahmas will be in the XFL, and as these are the teams going in with the season kicking off in February. Now, Ruckus, I'm sure you've gotten a chance to look at the logos and some of the other ins and outs of what these XFL teams have.
Only
Are
looking
there
at them
any
now.
that have a little bit of intrigue for you?
Well, first off, I didn't know what the meaning of Brahmas was, but now I see it's a type of a bull, and I like that one. The
It's
dragons
almost like the
one,
Rock's signature team. It's almost like the Rock's signature team because the Rock is known as the Brahma Bull.
yeah, and the Seattle Sea Dragons one looks like a budget knockoff of like the is it University of Central Florida
No,
Dragons or
no,
SF? You
no.
would
UCF is the Knights. I
okay.
think if you're talking that dragon, it would be like the Blazers of UAB of Alabama Birmingham.
Oh, well, yeah. Uh, I don't know. I like the Brahmas logo. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah. Um, the Orlando Guardians thing does not make a lick of sense because why would you have a guardian as a cat? It's a cat.
I mean, a man can dream, you know. Money buys happiness, but not for everybody.
But I like that the Houston Roughnecks they kind of have that thing almost doubled like an oil rig, kind of like what the Houston Oilers used to have. The DC Defenders they have
I
like the captain logo inside the middle of it.
Yeah, I
But
like
my
that
favorite
one.
one, I am so glad that The Rock decided to keep the XFL in St. Louis because when it was there before the pandemic happened, the fan base in St. Louis was rabid for it. Everything from the logo to the uniforms and everything looked super clean. I love the sword with the wings on the end, with the wings on the sides. It it is the cleanest look. And plus, I think if without seeing the St. Louis Battlehawks in action, I don't think we would have ever had the legend that eventually became, or at least according to the commander's side of it, of Taylor Heineke. As with the XFL, Taylor Heineke was with the St. Louis Battlehawks.
By the way, I
during the
was also looking at the. Sorry.
Yeah, and that was during the pandemic.
I was just gonna make a
So,
comment saying that the
yeah.
XFL logo looks a lot better than it did a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely glad that they changed that up too.
It looks like an Axe body spray font, but that's just my opinion. Uh,
Yeah, but I think with a lot of that you have the Rock kind of like really giving it a new feel,
yeah,
which honestly I'm stoked and I'm hoping that it brings the millions and millions of new XFL fans.
time to bring out the or not the snarl, but just the look. It's that. I guess that's
So
a snarl, right? Where he's got like the
the
one
raised
eye.
eyebrow,
Yeah,
the raised
the
eyebrow,
brow.
and talking about and more so in the laying the smack down as well. Um, but enough with the rock references at this point. Let's get to the simulated games.
I can't even smell anymore. All right. So you want me to start us off with the fantasy football
Yeah,
leagues results?
yeah.
All right. So I got really lucky this week and had a couple running. I had one running back go for 20 points, and then the rest kind of were like in about the 10 to 15 range. And Josh Allen had a good game, so I won 97 to 80 over my opponent, and now I am 5-3. I am now third in my league. Spennis, how are you doing
And
on your fantasy?
oh, not so good. And it's not for a lack of trying. It's not for a lack of trying to get something to go. I just can't get anything to go. I fall to 2-6 with an 88 to 82 loss. Tyler Boyd got a touchdown, and Danny Dimes played like a bust, while Jimmy G was solid for me. And I did not get a. And by my starting receivers, I did not get anywhere near as many points. Plus, what also did not help my cause was that Mark Andrews got knocked out of the second half of their game against Tampa Bay. So I didn't get anywhere near as many points out of the tight end position as I would have liked. So while dealing with a little bit of an injury bug, I'm again dealing with terrible quarterback play or very bad quarterback play. And even with Derrick Henry keeping me in it, I still can't do enough. But now that we've gotten out of the fantasy football realm, let's get into the real stuff. And we will be for our high heat going through week 8 and the trade deadline. We're going to go through the trade
Yeah.
deadline first and work backwards, as really the trade deadline is kind of being the most recent thing on the board. So,
I
the question is, what would you say is the most impactful trade of the deadline?
I'm gonna have to say Bradley Chubb to the Miami Dolphins, mainly because they need defensive help. I mean, yeah, they have Byron Jones and whatnot, but it's a little beat up over there, and Chubb will definitely help to Melvin Ingram and Emmanuel Ogba and the other guys that are on the Dolphins.
I'm gonna say there's about two deals that stick out for me. The first one that I did not write down is on the defensive side of the ball as well. And actually, both of mine are on the defensive side. And the first one that I have is Robert Quinn to Philadelphia. Now, just when you think that Eagles defensive line was so good, they now get deeper and even more dangerous with adding Robert Quinn to it. Though Robert Quinn probably won't get as many snaps, he's still gonna I think he's still gonna get a good amount of his. And the fact that the Eagles only gave up a fourth rounder for him is quite a reasonable asking price.
Yeah, and I think you can't go wrong with that, especially with the guy of that caliber helping out a defense for the Eagles, more opportunity rather than being with the Bears and just being feeling stuck.
Yep.
Most intriguing deal?
Well, and then my other one is the other one that the Bears gave up. Though the Ravens sent AJ Klein, a second rounder, and a fifth rounder to the Bears, the Ravens getting Roquan Smith as linebacking has been a little bit of a stumbling block for the Ravens. They get to pick up probably the best linebacker in the trade deadline market for essentially not too bad of an asking price. Not too bad of a price. Kind of makes it look pretty good. I mean, the Ravens are kind of on the borderline for some playoff motion, so this this deal could go places. And I think it will go places because Roquan Smith is quite the talent for Baltimore to get. What would
Yeah.
you say is the most intriguing deal?
Alright, so even though it wasn't like a very like a mouth-watering deal for the Chiefs, I think, and I'm not talking about Tony. I'm talking about Rashad Fenton being traded for I believe it was a fifth round pick.
No, it is a 2023 conditional seventh rounder.
That's right, my bad. So conditional seventh round, and I didn't even think the Chiefs were gonna make another trade because of the fact that around uh 3 p.m. Central, I didn't see anything on my feed on Twitter. I didn't see any news about it on ESPN. I didn't see anything just on the realm of what was going on until like 20 minutes later when Rashad Fenton was traded. Personally, I think that's very intriguing because of the fact that it gives us more cap space, about $1 million, I think at least, and then we get a compensational seventh rounder if things go well with Fenton and the Falcons. It also
Wait,
frees up some talent, right? What?
wait, hold up here. I'm double checking that because it's a conditional seventh round pick. It, is something supposed to happen if that the Chiefs get a seventh round pick, or does that
Um.
also become, or is it a seventh? But then if something like really really big happens, it becomes a sixth.
All right. Here we go. Conditional pick NFL. Uh. Uh. The term conditional draft pick refers to when A, there is a trade, and B, compensation will be a draft pick, and C, which pick it will be based on the performance of the traded player or on his or her team. An example would be the Donovan McNabb trade from the Eagles to the Redskins in 2010. The Eagles received the Redskins' number 2 pick in the 2010 draft and a conditional in the 2011 draft. The Eagles will receive either the Redskins' number 3 or 4 2011 draft pick based on the following conditions: whether McNabb makes the Pro Bowl in the 2010 season, or whether the Redskins make the playoffs in the 2010 season, or whether the Redskins win 9 games in the 2010 regular season. If one or more of these 3 conditions above comes true, the Eagles will receive the Redskins' number 3 pick. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's true, but it says a conditional draft pick is a result of a trade. Two teams make a trade, usually involving players, and one of those teams receives a conditional pick as part of their trade. For the team to actually receive the draft pick, a series of wait for it conditions need to be met. These conditions can be anything as long as the conditions are agreed upon by both teams. So it
Yeah.
wasn't just the scenarios I was talking about with McNabb. That was more. Uh, so I think it's more just that the player needs to actually perform well. Because if the player is a dud, then obviously you won't get that 7th pick in the
Right.
draft.
So yeah, with that it does leave you to a lot of, yes, dare I say it, a lot of risk that you're basically giving away Rashad Fenton for free.
I mean, we got like a good million in cap space from it, and also gave more opportunities to the rookies because we have 3 rookies and a vet in our corner system. We got Jalen Watson, Trent McDuffie, Josh Williams, and then you had the veteran Mr. Legarius Sneed. What was your intriguing deal?
I think the deal with the most intrigue is TJ Hawkinson to the Vikings.
He kind of looks like a Viking though in his picture with
Well,
the fourth
well,
year him.
you have TJ Hawkinson going to the Vikings along with a 2023 fourth rounder and a conditional fourth rounder for going to Detroit, where Minnesota gave up a 2023 second rounder and a 2024 third rounder. I think that what this does for Minnesota offensively, especially with how TJ Hawkinson can catch the ball, this is going to work wonders and pair very well with Kirk Cousins' passing style and Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen receiving the ball and Dalvin Cook out of the backfield. As TJ Hawkinson is one of those players that came from that famous tight that what they what George Kittle would call tight end university and the University of Iowa. And Iowa tight ends historically have done very well for themselves in the NFL. And I think Hawkinson going to the Vikings, and I think the potential that Hawkinson could have there in Minnesota is going to raise his ceiling even higher than where it already probably stood now.
Oh yeah, you have more weapons. It's always good to have more weapons as long as they all cooperate.
Yep.
Um,
All
so the
right.
next one we have is head scratching deal. So what is your head scratching deal, Spennis?
And this is a head scratcher for me on both sides of the trading table. I have Chase Claypool going to the Bears for a 2023 second round pick. First of all, Chase Claypool is not worth that much. The Bears
And
overpaid.
and the Bears don't necessarily really need any wide receiver help. They just need an overall help.
Yeah, and wide receiver is not the spot, especially after you gave up really two major defensive players. You get a wide receiver out of it. I mean, granted that it's another weapon for Justin Fields to potentially not throw the ball to, but
You could
is
have
this
used that second
supposed to?
round pick on like a offensive lineman or something, or like a
Yeah,
cornerback or
yeah.
something. Who
It was
knows?
something, that. It's something that really, 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 unless this is the Bears trying to make a move in the sense that the wide receiver free agent pool is minimal, or I've heard that this is a little bit of a weaker wide receiver free agent pool coming up this offseason. So this may be why they made the play for it. But a second rounder, I think, is a little. I think the Bears gave up too much, and I think the Steelers, especially if they know how to draft with this pick well, it's going to fleece the Bears.
I'm just gonna say this right now. The Bears are a bunch of idiots as far as their general manager goes. If you're not gonna protect your quarterback, especially if it's a very talented one and Justin Fields, then what the hell are you doing?
And are we really going to say he's that talented? I mean,
I
don't get me wrong.
I don't know. We could say
This
that
is
for another
this is
day.
just well, this is just me not really having a very. There's a lot of great players that come out of Ohio State. Don't get me wrong, but the quarterback position is not necessarily the one that breeds them. Like Ohio State does not really produce great quarterbacks.
I just remember the arm on that man in the college. I think it was like one of the playoff games they played. I don't know if it was the national championship or whatnot, but that man had an arm, a cannon, and that's what I remember out of Justin Fields. But moving on, my head scratching deal was the Calvin Ridley trade, a player that is right now suspended for gambling on a team that he is now on, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I mean, is it really a head scratcher, or is this just one that you can kind of just due to the sheer irony of situation, just be sitting on your couch like dealing with this, and all of a sudden you're rolling on the floor just laughing your butt off
It's
at
like if
just
it's like if like some other team wanted to fill a ownership role that was that needed to be filled because they wanted someone to do it, and they're just like, "Here, Dan Schneider, here you go. Here's a team that you can screw up." Yeah, that would be head scratching at that point.
and the Jaguars didn't even need to give up that much. I
I
think they
mean,
gave up
you could say they gambled too. I
no,
love the awkward silence.
not exactly. I I'm I'm not so much saying that it was a gamble, but I'm saying that it was just an overpay because I I would not even assess Calvin Ridley's worth right now or trade market value at a 2023 fifth round pick and a 2024 conditional fourth rounder. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I personally feel like that whole gambling thing's kind of stupid. Like the rule. I mean, if he was actually playing in the league right now and had a good year, it would have been. He probably might have maybe been worth that if maybe like a fifth or sixth round pick. But who knows? That's
Even
just
the
a
year
what
that
if.
he Oh, and then even the year that he was gambling, this that year just showed that Calvin Ridley is not a number one wide receiver. He is not a number one wide receiver. He will never be a number one wide receiver. And I almost want to see, because I don't even think on the depth chart he would even be thrown into at number one next year if and when he comes back. But I do want to see, but I do see another deal that I surprisingly like, and that is the deal between the Bills and the Colts with the Nyheim Hines deal. The Bills getting Nyheim Hines while trading away Zach Moss and a conditional sixth rounder. That's surprisingly a very good deal that I think both sides can benefit from. And I actually like that deal. It's not a head scratcher, but it's another deal that really in that most intriguing deal talk that I actually kind of like.
Yeah, I I don't know. That
Now,
sounds like a good one.
the the next question that kind of comes from the trade deadline is a player who didn't get dealt, but probably should have.
My surprise player was Cam Jordan because there was a lot of trade buzz about him possibly coming to the Kansas City Chiefs to help the pass rush. But at the same time, he's a bit older, and the Saints aren't doing the best this season. But at the same time, like, do we really want to pay a hefty price tag to keep him, or just get him in general? Like, you still have Frank Clark, which is on a restructured contract for this year, but he's suspended for only 2 games. Like, do we really need to get Cam Jordan when we could get someone cheaper, or maybe sign someone
Yeah,
like
and I
an
don't think you
American
sweat,
Sue?
or I don't even think you sweat it out. No, I don't think Ndamukong Suh would be a cheap enough price tag. I don't think he'd play for cheap enough. The price tag on Sue, I think, is going to be too high. So honestly, I think the Chiefs right now are just probably just wait the 2 games out, and then you get Frank Clark back, and you don't have to worry about a thing. Like just wait it out. Like I think the Chiefs not dealing for Cam Jordan just kind of shows us like let's kind of save some money a bit and just kind of like sweat it out. And for me, the one that surprisingly didn't get dealt, though I also would have said Brandon Cooks, the one that probably is an even bigger surprise, especially with how much he was wanting to demand himself to get the heck out of Cleveland, Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's one of those players who's good enough to be a feature back anywhere else, but he's stuck playing second banana to Nick Chubb. And Nick Chubb is a stud, but Kareem Hunt can run well. I just think that no team that I don't think teams had enough interest in running backs to say, hey, we want to try and take Kareem Hunt off your hands. And last but not least, an inactive team at the deadline that should have been active.
I know it's kind of hard to like explain this one, but the Green Bay Packers should have been active. But at the same time, I feel like their cap hit was too much to where they could really even like get anyone beneficial or do anything beneficial just as a whole.
Well, that kind of will translate into a certain Aaron that done messed up, if you
Yeah.
know what I mean.
Yep. Hippie Rogers is what I call him because of that do, and he just looks like an old hippie.
You did you kind of get the reference of where I was going with that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Aaron.
the
Aaron.
you done messed up, Aaron.
Aaron.
Oh, you done messed up. Oh my. And yeah, just taking too much money and really taking too much money, causing too much of a cap hit to kind of really not build very much around him. I mean, why do you think Devonte Adams left? Because Aaron Rodgers not wanting to take a pay cut. I think that ultimately was what sent Devonte Adams away from Green Bay.
I thought it was more because he wanted to get paid too.
Well, Devontae Adams, well, that too, but in order for Devontae Adams to get paid, somebody had to take a pay cut to do that. Aaron Rodgers needed less money so that Devontae Adams could get more. I mean, the deal with the Raiders eventually led him to get paid, but that deal could have happened in Green Bay had Aaron Rodgers decided to kind of take a take that tough pill to swallow swallow your pride, drop the ego, play for a little less or a lot less in this case, and try and get some players around you to build to win a Super Bowl because Green Bay is not a free agent destination anyway.
Yeah.
But for me, the team that I'm shocked was inactive that probably I thought was going to have some activity was actually the Los Angeles Rams. You've got Cam Akers, who you're wanting to try and like find like a trade spot for, but yet you can't. But yet, I think this is another thing where other than like your supplemental running backs, like your Naheem Hines, oh Chase Edmonds went to Denver
Yeah, he
in
went
that
through that
deal.
Bradley Chubb trade.
Well, and I'm going to say I think Denver needed that. I think
Yeah,
Denver
because
needed that, especially with Melvin Gordon not playing well and Javonte Williams being out for the season. That's a big help. That actually is a huge help. And Denver also getting a first round pick out of it. I'm like, I can see why you put that as your most impactful thing. I didn't see
I
what
honestly forgot that Chase Edmonds was traded to the Broncos.
I didn't see what the I knew that Chubb had gone to Miami, but I didn't initially see the what Denver received out of it in return.
Yeah. I
That was
mean, it
kind
was
of
a
where I
crowded
was.
it was a crowded running back room and Miami, so
But then also a lot of the upper echelon of running backs. I mean, where Kareem Hunt kind of sits, like as far as in terms of play, like a lot of running backs that probably could have been dealt didn't just simply because I don't think teams were willing to buy on them. But with that being said, let's go into this past week of football. Now that the trade deadline has passed, we can let's kind of recap the last couple of days before the deadline. And Ruckus, who was your most impressive team this past week?
I would have to say the 49ers, the San Francisco 49ers.
Hmm. In just how they took care of
It's just mainly
beating
how
the
they took care of the rivalry game that they had against the Rams, which the Rams didn't try to do what they could, but wasn't enough against McCaffrey and the Rams. Or not in the Rams, in the 49ers.
I actually am going to take, as far as my most impressive team, the Baltimore Ravens. You lose Mark Andrews in the first half, and you're dealing with the defense trying to take on a very emotionally damaged Tom Brady.
Emotional damage.
Damage.
I love that meme.
and and being able to do that without Lamar Jackson's number one security blanket, I think to me that makes the Ravens a little more impressive in terms of that Lamar Jackson can win these big games, but I'm still on that. I'm not sold about Lamar Jackson being able to win these big games when the lights are 1,000 times brighter. And and mid season is kind of not at a point where the lights are at its brightest. And the most disappointing team this week, Ruckus, for you is
The Las Vegas Raiders for getting shut out.
taking for me the most disappointing team being the Los Angeles Rams.
As they
For
lost against the 49ers. See what I did there?
well, I got where you were going with that, but I think for me where I was at on that was just for very much underperforming in a game where normally they're at about 1,000 times better.
Dude, I almost decided to put Van Jefferson in for one of my flex spots on my fantasy, but I am so glad I didn't because he didn't get any points at all, even though he was taking up the injured reserve.
Okay. Yep. And who was a player that impressed you this week,
Uh, this
Ruckus?
this running back for the Detroit Lions is uh, coincidentally on my fantasy team. Jamal Williams of the Detroit Lions scored 2 touchdowns and also got 50 yards total for rushing.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen bigger numbers out of what you put there, but I think Jamal Williams is one of the leaders in touchdowns and just kind of it's impressive how he just seems to keep getting touchdown after touchdown. But for me, I think the most impressive player this week is AJ Brown. You get 6 receptions for 155 yards, and half of those receptions were in the end zone.
And then getting a drug test later after the fact. You didn't hear about that?
I didn't hear about that, but I mean, just the fact of they're like, oh, half of his catches were for a touchdown. Yay, you are going to be subject to a random drug test.
Now time to piss in a cup.
I'm like, I'm sorry, this is why we can't have nice things.
Now go pee in a cup really quick.
Oh, and now it's time for our Eastwood segment of the High Heats. Our good, bad, and ugly
Wah,
this week.
wah. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Wah, wah, wah. You're welcome. Alright, see, I only did it once this time.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Yep. All right. So, where so Ruckus, where is kind of your good for this week?
My good is gonna be kind of like beating a dead horse at this point, but it's somehow still alive and muscle spasming. The Eagles are now 7-0, which isn't a bad thing. But what I meant by the being a dead horse was, I mean, now we're just waiting for it to fall. But at the same time, they're doing really well. I hope they keep going. But my bad is the Lions getting unlucky with their record being 1-6. Just their record, and also just straight up, they look like they've been in some close battles, but they just can't finish the job when it's needed. Like I believe it was last game, their wide receiver, right? Or am I thinking of a different game that celebrated? I think that was the Panthers and somebody else.
Yeah, it was the Panthers. It was the
But
Panthers against the Falcons, but as far as this week, but
But anyways, the Lions just seemingly look like they're getting unlucky with some of their games. And then my ugly is the Bucks 5 game losing streak.
yeah, this is a team that we really could have gotten like so much more out of. But it's Tom Brady. He's 45. He's got a lot of crap going on.
Yeah, and I saw a joke the other day showing that like his kids should have dressed up as football so he would actually play with them more.
Oh, I'm sorry, but as bad as that would have sounded, I think that joke also would have been deflated too.
Too soon. Deflated like his marriage.
Too soon.
Yeah, you're right.
uh, but with where your good kind of stands right now, the toughest game that Philadelphia has before the month of December, though the Commanders game will be interesting, the toughest game they have left is the Colts in the month of November. So they could be getting to that matchup with the Titans, sitting pretty at about 11-0.
Yeah, my bold take might be a shot in the foot for me, but it
Oh
was a
yeah.
bold take.
But I was telling you that. I was telling you that when you said it. I was telling you that when you said it when I was looking at the schedule ahead. So I kind of so that's kind of one of those things where I was looking at you saying, "Don't say that I didn't warn you."
Oh, I wasn't worried about the consequences.
All right. But my good this week, running backs having huge games. A couple of major examples for this. Derrick Henry rushing for 200 yards last week. And there were a whole bunch of 150-yard games, a whole bunch of 3 touchdown games between running backs. So just running backs as a whole playing huge this week. My bad kind of coincides with my most impressive player, the Steelers secondary and their accountability for AJ in covering AJ Brown. And the ugly in dealing with high knees and warm ups on the airplane.
You
The
said Heine.
cringe. The cringe known as Russell Wilson.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Chris Collingsworth, but here we go.
But Russell Wilson, I think, is kind of along those lines as well. Of
Broncos country, let's exercise on a plane.
and he did it for 4 hours. So I think
Do you
at
think
this
that's an
point,
advantage for him because he, or is it a disadvantage because he's in a high altitude situation?
mm,
I mean, granted, he's in the air and it's like closed off from the actual elevation, but I don't know. I
yeah,
don't know a lot about gravity and planes and shit, so let's
right,
just
yeah,
keep moving on.
yep. So the best game for you this week is Ruckus.
The 49ers Rams game.
But this game was super decisive in favor of the 49ers. Why are you going with that?
It was a rivalry game, and for the most part, I love just how the 49ers used their new weapon in Christian McCaffrey, but also went all the way around, kind of like how it was the other way around for them against the Chiefs, and how the Chiefs were just finding ways to get the ball moving and stuff. You know, like they turned it around. They looked like a team that would actually be able to compete against other teams that are looking to compete. And that's why I was like, hey, you know what? The 49ers are a pretty good team. You see that 49ers, you know, 49ers,
But
49ers.
But I'm like, you've got games with one possession that very well could have been used. I mean, you've got Carolina Atlanta, which came down to overtime, and a helmet and DJ Moore's helmet.
I mean,
You've got
those two teams are kind of mediocre though. Let's be honest. Yes, they're probably better than uh, some other teams in their division, like other.
oh, I
I
mean,
was
you had Tampa Bay and New Orleans are the other two in that division, which really
Yeah, and they're not doing
doesn't
well
amount to
either.
much. Yeah,
So like
I mean,
that
and then
whole
you have
division is
Arizona,
kind of
Minnesota.
mediocre.
You had Arizona, Minnesota. You had Jets, Patriots. You had Texans, Titans. You had, I mean, out of all of those games, I think it did kind of shock me a little bit to see that I'm like, you took a 17-point game. You took a 17-point game as your best game of the week.
Okay,
I'm
I like the scoring aspect of it. It doesn't always have to be a close game or between two knucklehead teams that just don't know how to score the ball.
oh, but I'm looking like, oh, this is high drama. This is the stuff that you want to see in an instant classic game.
I feel like it's
I
all
mean,
subjective.
yeah. But for me, my I am going to go with Commanders Colts
I let
because
you have that one.
because that game as a whole was an instant classic.
I loved how Scary Terry just kind of ripped it. He was just like, "Mama."
Oh man, and I'm actually going to tell you that that was something I was going to plug later.
You can still do that.
Yeah, because I think there was so much more to go along with it. But I mean, that
Heineke had
game
a good
just
game
as
though
a
too.
whole, yeah, Heineke had a great game, and there was a lot that went along with it. And Ruckus, you may want to adjust a different burning question here, like a little bit later on, unless you just want to kind of throw it into the muck. But we'll get to that here a little bit later. But worst game this week. Where are you thinking?
I was thinking the Raiders and Saints because the Raiders got shut out horribly against a team that's struggling pretty bad, and the Raiders in the beginning of the season looked like they were in some close games in the beginning and almost could have beat the Chiefs, but they lost by a point. But also bonehead decisions in like the offense, like two wide receivers running into each other in the Chiefs game. Some fumbling issues they've had in the past, and just uh, bad play it seems in the Saints game because they didn't score a point the whole game.
Yeah, I am actually going to go the with the Giant Seahawks as my worst game this week. And here's why. Heading into that game, the Giants were 6-1. Granted that you're going into Seattle at Seattle, but how do you go in there and lay a complete egg? Like, and just not not play incredibly well. Yeah, yeah, Danny Dimes didn't throw a pick, but he didn't throw a touchdown either. Like this game was played more vanilla than the ice cream that you want to serve with a warm apple crisp. Like he just played so vanilla. And if you want to be a quarterback that a true quarterback of the future, especially in a tough game, especially in tough games like this, Danny Dimes, you got to play better. You got to play better in those situations where it matters. especially because I think the Seattle Seahawks were a favorable matchup, but the 12th man is known for neutralizing a lot of different things.
Honestly, with the Giants, Daniel Jones can put on his resume professional fumbler. You heard that right.
Wait, but he did not cough up a single.
I'm
He
just
did
saying in
not cough up the
general in the
ball.
past that he's been known for like losing the ball or not having grip on the ball. That's my joke.
Yeah,
All right, I
but
adjusted
yeah.
my question. So, are
Well,
you...
all right. So, but what is our bold take
All
coming
right.
into the next bit?
All right, so my bold take is Kadarius Toney is going to go off after a relaxing bye week. I don't know how he's gonna do it, but I imagine it's gonna be what either in the punt turn or kick return variety, or maybe he sneaks into the offense a little bit and gets some snaps, kind of like how Justin Watson gets some snaps every once in a while to like I don't know, give a rest to other wide receivers that had played for a couple downs, like Juju Smith-Schuster or MVS or McCole Harmon, or maybe someone goes down. You never know with Andy Reid's offense. Just saying. But I think he's gonna go off after a relaxing bye week. He looks hungry.
Yeah, I have I have that Taylor Heineke starting at quarterback has given the Commanders new life, but the current winning streak is not sustainable. Now, here is why I am going to justify that argument. The Commanders, though currently in last place in the NFC East, have won their last 3 games, being going up against the Bears, the Packers, and the Colts.
Aren't they at least over 500, or what's their?
We're at 4-4.
Okay, yeah,
They're at 4-4.
that's what I was thinking.
But this is a very tough game. Granted, it is at home next week, this coming Sunday, as the Commanders are taking on Kirk Cousins in what is going to look a little bit more like a revenge game. As Kirk Cousins returns to FedEx Field.
I'd ship that if it fits, it ships.
Yep. But even if the Commanders defeat the Kevin O'Connell coached Minnesota Vikings and Kirk Cousins at quarterback, the very next game is against the Eagles on Monday Night Football at Lincoln Financial Field. So the streak is going to go down within the next 2 games, but the Commanders will have 2 games after that they can kind of float back into. So they could. So what I'm thinking is that they probably will get into the month of December with a 6-6 record before having to play the Giants in back-to-back games in 3 weeks. Yes, I said it. Back-to-back games in 3 weeks because the Commanders' bye week is in between the two.
All right, all right, all right.
So it gets a little hairy. So the schedule gets tougher for the Commanders as you have the Giants, the 49ers, the Browns, and the Cowboys to close out. But you're coming down to the last like major easy patch left that you could sit with. That if the Commanders are floating around with a 6-6 record, and they perform well against the Giants in either or preferably both of those two games and handle business against the Browns, they might be okay and could be a very low key sleeper to steal a playoff spot if they get on a roll. But I have my doubts. It's going to be another middling season.
We'll see.
But
We'll see.
there's a little more hope. There's a little more hope if especially if they get through these next two difficult games playing well.
You gotta have more higher hopes, okay? Just because Dan Snyder is making everything a living hell for Commanders fans doesn't mean that you can't have high hopes for their season as a whole.
Oh, it's tough. It's tough because the talent level is not quite as matching, and the schedule we have kind of at is a little softer than what it's a little bit more like softer cushioning than what we really we really probably could have. But what is the burning question for you this week, Ruckus?
Well, the burning question with this is why the Chiefs did not go for a pass rusher during the trade deadline. Because yeah, they could go for a cheap free agent defensive end, but part of me, the reason why I asked this question is part of me thinks that they wanted to save money and not uh go for like a big name or someone or a give another team like a different draft pick or money for a player that may or may not perform to the standards of the Chiefs and Brett Beach. But part of me also wonders because a lot of people during the trade deadline were wondering the potential candidates for the pass rusher that we would get. Because Brian Burns, what for the Panthers, they wanted at least a couple first round picks for Burns. Also, he's going to be expensive as far as in the future when it comes to the contract year. Um, then you also have Cam Jordan, which I originally had for my burning question before the deadline. But at the same time, like we were saying earlier, we could just wait and sweat it out. But I don't know. My burning question was mainly just why the Chiefs didn't go for a pass rusher.
I think it's better for the Chiefs right now to sweat it out because if they don't because here's the thing is that if they hang on to what they got, they have to deal with only Frank Clark being out two more games. So I I think that the Chiefs did not go for a pass rusher at the deadline because they still have players coming back. They're still going to have players coming back. They don't necessarily fully need to panic. Like I think them going for a pass rusher at the deadline would be almost the panic move.
Yeah, that's true. Because we still have Mike Dana. We have other people
Uh,
that could step up
I
as
mean,
well.
I think they still got Furious George too.
Right, right. I'm not saying that Furious George wasn't in the picture. I was just saying like on that side where Clark is, they got Mike Dana, and then the other side is Furious George because you don't have Mark or Melvin Ingram anymore. But
Yeah,
yeah, like I I agree with that. Like on that statement, but part of me was a little bit excited to see if we would maybe get someone for like an upgrade to it. But honestly, at the end of the day, if you're a manager and you don't want to waste money on someone and then not have that not pan out due to like the risks that you took, it's probably best just to leave it alone.
yeah, and I think they chose to leave it alone because patience will pay off for them at this point right now. And then if they have to address it later, they probably will. Veach will probably look into the draft to try and get one.
In V we trust. All right. Well, it's your
So
burning
so
question.
that's why they're not that's why I'm saying that the Chiefs are not panicking. Mine
Hmm.
is with Atlanta taking the lead with a 4-4 record in the NFC South. Who really has control of this turbulent division? And yes, I did just call the NFC South a turbulent division. So who really like who's got control of it? Like are we still just in a matter of you've got teams that are underachieving in that division, but you've got all four of them within 2 games of each other jockeying for position. I mean, granted that you're going to see that across multiple divisions, where the Seahawks and the where the NFC West is a 2 game race. The the NFC East is interesting. Like is probably one of the most interesting. Um, the AFC North is always an interesting hub. The AFC East is very interesting now. Like there's a lot of interest, but I think to me it's this division that is so like underachieving this season that right now is drawing my most interesting take because this is likely going to be the number 4 seed in the playoffs, which normally ends up being the NFC East team most of the time. It's like who's wanting it right now is kind of where my burning question is set for right now.
Yeah. I guess we have a little bit of breaking news. Do you want me to cover it?
Oh, hit it. Well, let's
The
actually I actually I know I was in the middle of like a ranting type of question. I mean, let's go ahead and answer the question and then go to it.
what was the question?
Kind of the who really has control of the NFC South.
Whoever wants it more, really. That that's a no shit Sherlock question to me as far as that answer that I just gave. But like, I really don't know. Um, Again, like I said, it's whoever wants it more because the thing is, you still. I mean, it's a really unproven division as far as who gets the lead, and it could just be whoever gets luckier. Because like a couple years ago, I remember there the Commanders before they were the Commanders, they were just the football team. Got really lucky in their division and they weren't doing so well, and there was like other teams that were in the running that also had really bad records, I think, in that division or another NFC division that were not doing well, like the Eagles and the Cowboys. And somehow the Cowboys got into the playoffs even though they had a terrible season. Like, I don't know. The NFL is a very mysterious league when it comes to those kind of things.
Yeah, I am gonna say that probably out of out of the team set out of the schedule remaining on the next 5 for each of the teams in the AFC South, the team that I think that has the most potential to get the most wins out of their next 5, I actually am going to say it's the Falcons. I think the Falcons right now are the ones that probably as far as their own destiny, Atlanta's got the most control. I think Atlanta's probably got the most controls. And this is now actually getting interesting as far as the World Series coming up. Is that where your
Yeah,
breaking news was?
yeah. So currently, right now, as of recording, it is 10:30 p.m. Central Time. The You probably got a notification as of the recording saying that there was a no-no through the ninth inning, And they're currently, as of recording, it is the bottom of the ninth with nobody out. Ryan Presley is pitching to Brandon Marsh, and it is he just fouled off himself, and it's still a 2-2 count. But there's still 3 outs to be gone. Yes, Ryan Presley is in. That is correct through the bullpen, but there are still no hits, and this could
Yeah,
be the second no hitter in World Series. I believe it's in postseason history or World Series history, because I remember Roy Halladay had one in 2010.
Marsh just struck out swinging. We're 2 outs away.
But anyways, that was my breaking news. It probably wasn't
Well,
that breaking, but I just thought it was
well,
something to note.
well, we probably could have hit that at like another point as it was like officially in place, but it was nice for
Yeah.
you to actually kind of like stick that in there. And
Anyways, you ready?
but we're now to the film room where we kind of go through our predictions for hold up. I
You're fine. You're fine. Go for it.
um where I actually will be setting our predictions for the week. And last week was a favorable week for Ruckus and I, as we both, in the only game that separated us, I ended up taking it, and it was a set. So I finished 7-2, while Ruckus was 6-3. And the first game this week, number 1 versus number 2 in Tennessee versus Georgia.
I picked
Who
Tennessee.
I am taking the Georgia Bulldogs. Number 1 will beat number 2. Alabama versus LSU.
I picked Bama. Sorry, not the
I
Tigers.
Yeah, I took Alabama as well. NC State versus Wake Forest.
I picked NC State.
I am agreeing with you on the Wolfpack for that as well. So the LA Chargers versus the Atlanta Falcons.
I'm gonna pick the Chargers.
Yeah, I think I'm on that same path as that. This is the only game out of the next 5 for the Atlanta Falcons, other than probably the Commanders game, that is going to be the most 50-50 out of that whole set. Jets, Bills.
Duh, Bills.
I'm taking the Bills as well. The Tennessee Titans versus the Kansas City Chiefs.
How about those Chiefs?
I think I'm taking the Chiefs as well. I'm hoping Derrick Henry can still have a great game running the football, but I think the Chiefs will score early and often enough that it may limit those opportunities. I think Tennessee, the biggest way that they're going to have to do much of anything at all is just completely control the clock. And last but not least, the Vikings versus the Commanders. In the Kirk Cousins Kevin O'Connell revenge game.
The Vikings.
As much as I don't want to do this,
I was
I
about to put the Commanders, not gonna lie.
I'm going with my I'm going to go along with my along with my bold take in that this streak is not sustainable. I I am going to take the Vikings and yell the word skull because I think the Vikings probably could be that team that comes out of the NFC for the Super Bowl. I think they are looking that good.
All right.
And and they'll show it. If it's not the Vikings, it probably will be the Eagles. Okay, so we're to our color commentary, where we now will have the segment where we come up with a creative debate the decision. Any suggestions, of course, contact us. This week's color commentary is called the Hot Seat Meter. The question: on a scale of ice cold to burning hot, how likely is the potential of these coaches getting fired? And this is at the mid-season point. Ice cold is not likely, more than likely not going to happen. You have heating up. There's potential starting to show. Quite warm. The potential is definitely there. Hot. It's likely to happen. And then burning up, no doubt this is happening. And it probably will happen sooner rather than later. And the first coach up on the docket, Arthur Smith. This is the Atlanta Falcons head coach.
I'm gonna say it's heating up because it's not. I mean, they're still like good in the division per se. Like they're not like out of it completely entirely, but I would still be worried.
Say
It,
it is heating up with the potential to cool down.
yeah,
With the potential to cool down, especially if they take advantage of doing well over their next five. Over these next 5 games, I think we're going to see that likelihood just start to like fizzle out.
yeah.
Matt LaFleur, we're going to the Packers now.
I would say quite warm.
Oh, so you're saying there's a greater amount of potential for Matt
Um,
LaFleur to be fired?
can we do a quick break?
Oh, what are we
The
hitting?
did they just hit the no? I believe
As
they
far
just
as I know,
did.
no, I think it looks like Schwarber.
He walked.
No, Schwarber walked. Real Muto. I haven't seen anything with Real Muto yet. Yeah, it looks like they got it. It actually looks like they got it. A
Second World
combined.
Series no hitter
It
in
is a
MLB history.
combined. Well, I think this is also the first combined though.
Yeah.
If we're talking, because I think the other one was a I think it was a perfect game. I think it was like a perfect game back in the 50s with like Don Larson or something like that. Hang on here. I'm confirming that information.
Okay.
Um
Do you want me to go back to my answer about Nathaniel Hackett?
well, the umpire called a perfect game. Well, there was a perfect game called by Pat Hoberg, but Don Larson was the first perfect game in World Series history. But yes, let's actually go back to Matt LaFleur here.
Okay. So Matt LaFleur, I have him as quite warm because of the fact that he's been there longer, and also it just seems like not a whole lot's working out for the team at the moment when it comes to offense. And I mean, the defense is somewhat there, but their offense is just not clicking.
Thinking that the issues here for LaFleur are Rogers based rather than and a bunch of his coaching staff that he previously had getting promoted or sent elsewhere rather than LaFleur just not doing well. And this is really the first major bad season that LaFleur is having. but there's almost like a no excuses type of thing that Green Bay's fan base is rabid over.
I wouldn't
I
blame
think
him.
right now, I think I'm not quite to the point of quite warm, but I think we're slowly starting to heat up.
Fair, fair.
I think it's heating up, but it's not quite to quite warm yet. The next coach we want to hit here is Dan Campbell, the Lions coach.
I'm gonna say heating up because, I mean, yes, his team is, for the record, isn't the best, but the potential that he has as a head coach currently, his team is doing all right, but it could be better. But that's saying it with a lot of teams. But I think Dan Campbell still has a voice in the locker room and can bring his fellas together, or his cubs, you could say, together. Lions. I don't know.
About At
Bad.
about like week 3 or 4, when I was saying that the Lions were playing better than what their record showed, I thought the Dan Campbell seat was going to be ice cold by the time this was all said and done.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore. I am really thinking that that seat is quite warm right now, and it is getting hotter. It probably, if the Lions don't win any more games, it's going to hit the hot segment by the time by the time Thanksgiving rolls around.
Are you sure it's just not the seat warmer in his car?
I definitely am thinking that Dan Campbell he might not have, like, if he doesn't find some way to sustain this or kind of calm the storm, that that seat is going to get hot really quickly. I've got him at quite warm for right now, but it could get hotter if this continues to go downhill. Frank Reich. This is the Colts coach.
Yeah, I know. Um, I'm gonna say hot because it's more than likely to happen because not a whole lot is no not a whole lot of good has happened. Yes, they have had some good outings against teams that should have beat them, and yeah, had lost to a team that was less fortunate with the talent they had. But at the end of the day, like, the scenarios you're in that make you look bad can also pay dividends to, like, investors in the team, or just in general, like, it as a person that's a fan of the team can look bad. Who knows?
And you said which one for this? You were saying it was hot.
Yes, sir.
I'm thinking this seat probably has caught fire.
Like burning hot.
Like it is, like it's burning hot. Like this one is burning hot. And I have no doubt that by the end of the season this is going to happen because Ursay can get a little trigger happy. And Frank Reich, I mean, Ursay got, I think the problem with the Colts is that they got a little too trigger happy in letting go of Carson Wentz. They made sure that after only one season, Carson Wentz's time came and went. But what probably should have happened is that they should have held on to Carson Wentz and just not had to worry about as much of this. And probably Carson Wentz would have played better enough that Frank Reich's seat wouldn't be this hot, especially after Matt Ryan struggles in doing really much of anything at all. So Frank Reich's seat right now is probably on fire and combu- and really I'm gonna say almost spontaneously combusted when Matt Ryan got benched.
Let me stand next to your fire.
All right. The next one that I'll throw out here is Brandon Staley. This is the Chargers coach.
I think it's very not likely because his talent is there, and they've lost a bunch of close games when it mattered, like the against the Chiefs or against other teams. But also, you can't really blame him for like the injuries that are happening with the players. Like Joey Bosa's out, and a couple other guys are out. They're banged up, but that's not like a reason for you to be like, oh, Brandon Staley's heating up, because yes, he's very trigger happy when it comes to going for it on fourth down, but I feel like there's a reason for that because of the fact that mainly the teams that he wants to like get ahead of are probably going to find like score later on, and he just wants to get ahead of that curve, or who knows. I think Staley will be fine. I don't think he's really in the hot seat, but I wouldn't be surprised if he is from other people's perspectives.
I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say that it's not quite warm, but it's slowly starting to heat up. I think it's heating up a little bit,
Yeah.
and here's why. There's just something about it with quarterback, head coach, and playbook that just is not quite working correctly. It's not that it's not working because it's shown success in the recent past with the Chargers. I mean, injuries could be part of that, which that's beyond your control. But just offensively, something's not quite right. And this could be in the playbook calling, and the play calling that Staley is bringing to the table. As Herbert has also kind of not been playing great, and the play work from Herbert has been somewhat inconsistent over the last couple of years.
But
Like
also,
his
this year
his
is an exception, I feel, because of his rib injury that he sustained. But also,
it's
yeah, I get your
it's a
point.
it's a small aberration, but at the same time, just something like there were even times last year where Herbert would just completely like the wheels would look like offensively that they fall off too often.
Yeah.
It's like that. It's like you're pedaling on a bike and the chain keeps popping off.
Also, that could be the same thing you could say to Keenan Allen, though, too. Like, or not as far as like, oh, because they were so good this year. Like, Keenan Allen has just not been existent as far as on their offense this year because of the injuries he's had to deal with. Compared to Herbert, like Herbert, he could at least play through it, whereas Keenan Allen is just kind of like, nope, like just non-existent, and he could have been very helpful to that offense as well. But what's the next coach that we can talk about, or are we moving on?
Nathaniel Hackett, this is the Broncos coach.
Ooh, that mess, that hot mess. I'm gonna say hot because it's likely to happen, but at the same time, that whole situation, because there's people saying that maybe it's Russell Wilson trying to man the ship versus Nathaniel Hackett, and Nathaniel Hackett just kind of trying to help out and get the offense going and other things going and trying to talk to other people. But maybe Russ is on his mind because Russ thinks he owns everything. I don't know. That could be hearsay, but it's
Spontaneous
probably definitely likely to
combustion.
happen. Go ahead.
Upon the week one issues that Hackett had, I am very much going to say that this thing has spontaneously combusted. That offense is broken. You brought in this guy to be an offense who was a former offensive coordinator, and the offense is broken.
You're
I'm
talking about
sorry.
a quarterback that throws the ball in the end zone when it could have just been a run in, especially on a game where they had the advantage by running it with 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and they instead go to the end zone and throw it for an interception. That kind of thing against the
I
Colts.
actually don't think I blame Russell Wilson for that either.
He did the same shit in the Super Bowl. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
I'm talking that play in the Super Bowl.
oh, I was just comparing two things. That's all I was saying.
I was saying that Russell Wilson, like especially with that Super Bowl, I don't think I could fully blame Russell Wilson for that.
I'm also
I
just trying to play the dumbed down version of Devil's Advocate between the two. Like, my version of it was like, okay, maybe these two sides are like battling each other out and trying to like come to a neutral agreement, or maybe there's like a side that we don't know about. Like, obviously Nathaniel Hackett's probably screwing something up, but everybody screws something up eventually. But at the same time, it doesn't excuse that. I'm with you. I just don't know what to
yeah,
believe.
I'm just in that seat is burning hot because that offense. I mean, granted, the injuries don't help, but I think Hackett was just not the right fit in Denver at all.
Denver's not very good at making decisions when it comes to certain aspects, but yeah.
Let's go to another team in the AFC West. Josh McDaniels.
I think it's likely to happen, and I think he's on the hot seat because it just seems like it was more of a, oh yeah, he could definitely coach. He's coached before, but do you really remember what happened in Denver before he went back as, wasn't he like an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator for the Patriots?
He
I
was an
just
offensive guy.
That's what I thought. I just remember him being like a helper for Belichick with the Patriots
Mm-hmm.
after things went south.
Yep. I I think that the seat is quite warm for McDaniels, but I don't think it's hot enough yet because I'm thinking that the issue that probably is prevailing at this point is not Josh McDaniels. It could very well be Derek Carr. And I think Derek Carr might be sent packing by the time this offseason kicks
He
in.
just signed an extension, dude.
But still, I think that I
So
don't
you're
think
gonna
that
take a
rules
hit?
out.
Are they
I
gonna
don't
take a
think
hit?
that rules out. I still don't think that rules out the Raiders doing a little trade heave ho and getting some extra assets, and then going into the first round of this year's draft and taking a quarterback.
Are you sure that they wouldn't get a team that's willing to eat that contract and take him for what he may or may not be worth? Because personally, I think he's staying there for a little bit longer, but I could be eating my words later in the future. Who knows? That'll be next March probably. But I just I feel like they're, whenever he got extended, he was gonna be there for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm wanting to see what the if he had gotten if it was a contract extension.
It was. I think it was. I don't know how many years, but it was definitely a big extension that they did. I
It
was
was
just
only
looking
a
up their
it was a
standings.
3-year extension, which
Is there an opt out on one of the years?
Hmm.
Or
Well,
is it more just like he just is there and getting paid for an assload of money?
um, it goes 32 million, 41 million, 41 million. But he does have a
So
potential out. He does have a potential out at 2023, 1 year, 25 million with a 5 million dead with 5 million dead cap.
that's just for the Raiders dead cap, not for the team that gets him dead cap.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So, but still, that's 25. I mean, that would be kind of like a scenario like with what the Commanders did with the Colts to trade for Wentz.
Carson
Cause
Wentz. Yep.
yeah, but yeah, I don't know. We'll just have to see.
Yeah. It says
Next
yep. It was a dead cap value of 24 million is
we
where
need
they
to
were.
speed this up.
Yep. I got you. I think we probably will only have like I think we got like two more that I really kind of want to hit.
That's fine.
Um, Ron Rivera.
I think he's uh maybe starting heating up, but I think he's probably fine where he's at, to be honest.
I think the seat's quite warm, but the problem is that I don't think that the Commanders will be able to afford to let him go. Scott Turner, that seat is. I'm sorry, that seat on him is hot.
Yeah.
But with Ron Rivera, I think the seat is not as hot. But his coordinators could be in more trouble than he is.
Yeah.
And then and then really, I mean, Cliff Kingsbury, I'm pretty sure we're both kind of on that quite warm type of trail. But the last one,
I don't know. Yeah.
I really want to throw out there is Zach Taylor.
Um
This
when
is
did
the
he become a
Bengals.
coach? When did he become a coach for the Bengals?
I think Taylor became the coach. I think he was a 20.
He has been there since 2019.
Yeah,
So, a couple of years. He had a Super Bowl run. Uh Burrow and Chase did a pretty good connection. I honestly just feel like it's not like the end of the world. I think yes, it could heat up a little bit that he possibly gets fired, but I don't think it's all his fault. I think it's more just the momentum and just other things that have gone on with the health of the players like T Higgins and uh Boyd
Jamar
and
Chase and
yeah.
Burrow and yeah,
And just
I think
unluckiness with
it's
the
cheap.
McPherson stuff, like at the beginning of the year, like they could have won against
Yeah.
the Steelers, but they ended up tying, like stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I think the seat for him is kind of ice cold.
Yeah, he's probably
It's ice
fine.
cold. That's not happening.
All right, are
But
we ready for our
now,
prime time?
yep, time for the primetime game, and we are now doing the same thing we did for quarterbacks. Deal or no deal. The theme this week is wide receiver cores. No, this does not include the backfield. So if passes are thrown to the running backs, they don't count. It's just wide receivers. If the player has a wide receiver distinction, it counts. So I believe for the Bills in this case, I believe Naheem Hines counts as a wide receiver because I think he's kind of got that hybrid. Cordarrelle Patterson, I think, also might be under the hybrid rules. I will double check on both of
Let's keep it
those.
to wide receivers.
Well,
Because technically, I could say that Isaiah Pacheco is a wide receiver, even though
well,
he's a
here's the
hybrid.
thing. It just depends on if he has the hybrid distinction. It's like if he has wide receiver in his position list, he counts.
So now we're going based off of hybrids instead of just what they're called.
No, no, but if they include wide receiver, if they include wide receiver in their description, they count.
Okay,
If it's so,
whatever.
if it's a running back, if they are exclusively a running back, they don't count. So the first one I'm really wanting to look at here is Cordarrelle Patterson. Okay, Cordarrelle Patterson no longer counts. Cordarrelle Patterson no longer counts. And actually, Naheem Hines will not count either. So, so so Hines. So if you get the Bills, Hines does not count. If you get the Falcons, Cordarrelle Patterson will not count. It is just exclusively wide receivers.
Okay.
All right. So, with deal or no deal here, the scoring 10 points for rushing or receiving. So for your rushing or receiving yards, you get 10 points for each, 10 points or 10 yards a point. So this is where your Curtis Samuels and your Debos are worth something. 6-point tutties for rushing, receiving, or if the return is done by a receiver. If the return is done by a defensive back or a running back, it does not count. The returns must be done by wide receivers. You lose 3 points for turnovers. The 10 the 10 teams that are inside of our cases, the Dolphins, the Colts, the Bengals, the Seahawks, the Lions, Vikings, Panthers, Texans, Bears, Titans are the teams that are inside the cases. So, Ruckus, who is going first?
Let's go. I'll go first.
Okay. All right. So, how this deal or no deal works is you get to pick your opening case.
Um, I'm gonna go with number 6.
Okay.
That's the one that stays with me through the end of the game, right?
Yes, this is the
Okay,
one
just
that
double
stays
checking.
with you. All right. So, number 6 is your case. You now select 3 cases.
I'm gonna go with case number 8, case number 4, and case number 2.
Okay. So, in the order of the cases that you selected, at case number 8, the Carolina Panthers are out. For case number 4, it is the Indianapolis Colts that are out. And for case number 2, it is the Cincinnati Bengals. Okay. So for the first deal, I am going to give you the Baltimore Ravens receiving core against the Saints on Monday Night Football.
Deal.
You said no deal?
Correctamundo.
All right. You now get to select 2 cases.
Alright, how about. Because I have. Um, let's do case number 7 and case number 3.
Okay, so you have now gotten rid of the Vikings and the Lions. Okay. This is a little this is a little tough. Hmm. I think I'm gonna have to give this one to you. The Las Vegas Raiders receiver core against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Deal.
You said deal?
No deal.
Oh, no deal.
Hell no.
Wow. Even with Devontae Adams, that was almost enticing enough.
Dude,
You
Devonte
said
Adams can get
no,
mossed for all I care.
no deal. Okay. You now get to pick two. Yeah, two more cases.
Case number 5 and case number 9.
Okay. You lost the Miami Dolphins
Oh, boo-hoo.
and you lost the Houston Texans.
Hooray!
Okay.
No offense to the Texans fans.
Hmm. All right. Your next offer is the Jets receiving core against Buffalo.
No thanks. Pushing the button.
Yeah,
Sayonara.
you're not. Yeah, you're not. Not gonna take anything on that. All right. You now are down to 3 cases. You get to select one more case.
Um, I'll do case number 1.
You have gotten rid of the Bears. So your two remaining ones
Are 10 and 6.
uh, are 10 and 6. Yep. And you have played this somewhat okay. I'm gonna offer you the Commanders receiver core against the Vikings.
Which ones were off the board? So I got rid of the Bengals.
Yes, the Bengals are gone, the Dolphins are gone, the Vikings are gone. You're kind of down to the Seahawks and the Titans. And your offer is the Commanders.
I'm gonna say deal.
Okay, so you're taking the deal of the Commanders. Okay. All right. So, Ruckus, just to kind of finish out the game here. If you would have said no deal to the Commanders, would you have kept your case or swapped your case?
Honestly, I probably would have kept it. What would it have been?
You had the Seahawks.
Could have had DK and Lockett, but hey,
You,
here we
you
are.
had you had the Seahawks who were playing against the Cardinals. But I will say this, I think giving you the Commanders late was probably the best deal I could have given to you because you knocked out right away. Like your early set, like you knocked out the Panthers, you knocked out the Colts. I think you knocking out the Colts and Bengals that early hurt you. That's why I couldn't really give you anything good.
The
And
Bears one
kind of
was good
as you,
too.
well, the Bears one would have been okay. but once I finally got you with the commander's deal, once I finally was able to like kind of like say like, yeah, you're kind of playing this a little better now. I can kind of like dial it up a little bit. Like the commanders might be a good sticking point because you kind of were playing lower middle, and I really couldn't give you like a bottom of the barrel. So really, the Falcons was kind of out. All right. So I am going to take case number 4.
Okay. All right. What cases do you want to get rid of?
All
So it's
right. So
three
I'm
this round,
knocking out.
correct?
Yes. So I'm knocking out 3 cases. 1, 6, and 8.
All right. So you knocked out the Lions,
Okay.
and
So
you knocked out
that's a
the
little.
Texans,
Okay. So that's fine.
and then 8 was the Titans.
Okay. So I know I'm going to be getting a pretty decent. The hardest one that I had to knock out was the Lions because of that being on Ross St. Brown, but St. Brown is also not currently healthy or not currently in the best
So
health. So, what kind of deal are you looking at here? This is where probably if I were to look at this, I think I would be anticipating receiving. Well, this is a
how
decent
about the Arizona Cardinals offensive wide receivers
so
against the
Arizona.
Arizona versus the Seahawks.
Yeah, let's see. I I'm not thrilled with that matchup as a whole. And knowing that I still have Miami, Minnesota, Cincinnati, and Indianapolis on the board. I think I'm gonna turn it down. No deal.
All right, fair enough.
Because the chances are that if I continue to play this well enough, I could get an even better core.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, next few boxes.
2, 5, and 10.
All right. So
Oh
for
wait, no,
two,
no, no. I
oh,
think this is 2 case. I think this is 2 cases here. Yeah, I think
okay.
this is 2 cases actually.
So just 2 and 5.
Uh 2 and 10. 2 and 10.
Okay. All right. Fine. Sorry. Uh, number 2. Dun 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 dun. Bengals.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
And then number 10. Dun dun dun. Dolphins.
This is the Dolphins. Yep. Oh.
All right. So
Oh.
my offer for this round, since you're the Bengals and Dolphins, it's going to be. How about the Tampa Bay receiving core against the Los Angeles Rams?
Hmm. Think I'm still sitting on a decent core. I'm gonna probably go no deal.
All right, sounds good. All right,
Um.
so 2 more, I believe.
Yep. 2 more here. Um. What cases do I still have available? I have 3, 3, 6.
6 is gone.
Oh no, 3, 5, 3, 5, 7, and 8.
8's gone as well. So 5, 7, and your case
9.
4.
Wait.
Wait, 9 is not been taken. Okay, so you have 5, 7, and 9, I believe.
3 and 9.
Yeah. My bad.
Yeah, 3 and 9. So that'll
All right.
put me with 4, 5, and 7 left as my. Wait, no, no, I took 2 and 10. So
Yeah.
that would be, so yeah, so it'd be 3, 5, and yeah, so I'd be down to 4, 5, and 7. Yeah,
All
3 and
right.
9 are going to be my next two.
All right. 3 and 9. All right. So for number 3, dun 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 dun, Chicago Bears.
So
All
Bears,
right.
okay.
And then number 9, you have dun dun dun. Just kidding. Indianapolis Colts. Number 9.
Okay, okay, that's fine. It's fine. I'm probably sitting on likely
So offer
because the
for
Colts have a
that.
because the Colts just don't have a great quarterback support.
Um. So now you have 5 and 7 left over, correct?
4, 5, and 7. 4 is my case.
Uh, how about the Green Bay Packers wide receiver core?
Wow, the deals have gone downhill.
If you think of it in a negative way, yes. If you think
No,
of it in
the
a positive way, maybe.
no, no, I think this is. I'm sitting on the Seahawks. I'm sitting on likely having either the Seahawks, the Vikings, or the Panthers. No deal.
All right, all right, okay.
I don't have Green Bay that high. No deal.
All right. So what's the last one you want to do, or want to take away? I should say.
Five. Five.
5. All right. Number 5 is the Seahawks.
Okay, so I'm sitting on either Minnesota or Carolina. This is interesting because with Minnesota that gives me Jefferson or Thielen against the Commanders secondary that can be burned, or uh,
Whoa.
Panthers going up against Carolina against Cincinnati.
I'm gonna give you the Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver core as my offer.
I love it. Deal.
All right, so we both got deals.
Yeah, we and I probably had I chosen no deal, I probably would have kept my case.
All right, so do you want to know what your case was?
What was my case?
The Panthers.
Okay, so yeah, I probably would have very well swapped. I would have looked at possibly swapping my case at that point. Like
Which
I
the
I
other
would have
one
been about
was. So what did you
Minnesota. It
make?
would have been Minnesota. I would have been down to Minnesota or Carolina,
Yeah,
and I took the Eagles defense again, or I took the Eagles.
wide receiver
I took the
core.
Eagles wide receiver core against the Texans. So that so here's what this is giving me. You're giving me like I have a favorable matchup number 1. But the receiving core, you give me AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Quez Watkins, Zach Pascal, and Britton Covey. And then the Commanders core, which I would know rather well. This gives you Terry McLaurin, De'Ami Brown, Cam Sims, Curtis Samuel, Dax Milne, and Jahan Dotson. So that so this as a whole gets very, very interesting. And I really am liking this because this is actually a very, very good this actually is a very good matchup. I mean, you get you probably out of the three, out of like the two out of the two we have is this is a tough matchup. For you have a tougher matchup because the Commanders are going up against the Vikings, but I have the Eagles going up against the Texans. So I'm quite excited to see how that pans out.
Yeah, and it also helps to have coordination with Deal or No Deal when someone actually has it prepared, unlike last time. But I think that was still fun, nonetheless.
Well, what was kind of like because what was kind of your thought process with kind of how you were making your deals? Because I knew as soon as you got rid of like within the first couple that you got rid of, I'm like, Ruckus isn't playing this one all that great because you knocked out Cincinnati and knocked out Cincinnati rather quickly, like Cincinnati, Indianapolis rather quickly. So I'm like,
So the Bengals Dolphins one in the second round, I was like, okay, those are two pretty good wide receiver cores. And so I figured I would give you a broken one, which is the Buccaneers. Yes, they have good wide receivers, but are they always going to be on the field? And are they healthy? And are they actually doing Brady a favor by actually catching the damn ball? The answer is hell no. So that's why I was like, okay, I'll give you a dumpster fire for that one. And then
oh, but here's the thing: is that secondary for the Rams can be exposed upon, especially because here's what the Tampa Bay core would have given me because that was one that I potentially was like looking. I'm like, you're giving me an option at Mike Evans. You've got me there with Mike Evans, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Scotty Miller, Brashad Perriman. I mean, I have options to go to.
yeah, but do you have the potential of them actually catching the ball or getting any attention? Is the thing.
Yeah, yeah, but the matchup was a little iffy.
I mean, anything can
Um,
happen in football. The Colts can stomp on the Chiefs' grave. Really, anything can happen. The Giants could have a winning record and not have a losing record. That's why I kind of played the game there. I also thought more just on the offensive side rather than the matchup itself. Because
yeah,
if you think of the matchup itself and think, oh, this team is definitely better than this team, well, it could have a different effect than what you would have
yeah.
thought. So that's
Oh
why I
yeah.
was doing that instead of
Had
just
you
going based off
gotten
of two
off to
teams.
had you gotten off to a better start, I would have probably been able to throw you. I would have been able to throw you the bone of like, okay, you giving me the Cardinals early. I'm like, I've got the Cardinals in a very good spot, but I don't like that matchup.
I was also trying to give you the bait because D Hop is back and they still have some other guys. It's just Russell, or not Russell, um,
Kyler Murray. Yeah,
Kyler
Kyler
Murphy is
Murray is.
Kyler Murray is trying to find a kill streak rather than trying to get a first down or any offense going for his team.
Yeah, and I kind of like gave you. I gave you the Commanders kind of like on an upper middle, like really kind of like the most middle of it was the Commanders, and I'm like, yeah. I looked at the Ravens. I'm like, but I think I was trying to entice you a little bit more with the Raiders, with of course Devonte Adams and Hunter Renfro.
That's not really enticing, to be honest, because those are
It,
two pretty mid wide receivers, in my
but
opinion.
Jacksonville is also not that great against the pass. Like, has not been that great against the pass.
They're just kind of. existing. They're not really doing a whole lot offensively.
Yeah, because basically what it is the defense against the pass is what I'm wanting to look at. Um, net passing yards is 1897, which is 237.1 yards per game. So that as a whole, it's like Jacksonville's kind of like there.
Yeah.
Like they have a positive like per game on that. But I think teams are showing that they can throw on them more than what yeah, they will throw on them more than they will run on them.
All right.
So
Let me
now
get
to our
the.
stud and dud.
All right. You want me to go first, or do you want to go?
Yep. Yep, I have a little bit more information than you do, so
All right. So my stud of the week, and this series is currently going on still, but I just
and it's
wanted
tied
to.
it and it's tied at 2.
Yep, do the second no hitter in World Series history or postseason history, if you want to put it that way. Um, my stud this week is Alec Boehm for hitting his first postseason homer in the World Series, nonetheless. Because yes, you could hit a homer in like the ALDS, NLDS, Championship Series, but this man hit a line drive homer in the World Series against the Astros. And this is where the Fighting Phils took a 2-1 lead before tying the series, getting the series tied on them. And they hit 5 home runs on the night in that game yesterday. I was I'm happy for Alec Boehm because he's had some ups and downs with the Phils, and my man got a live drive, and it was worth it. And then I
Yeah.
have a dud.
Well, I was going to go right into my two studs here
Go
because we'll
for
go
it.
stud, dud, dud. The my honorable mention is a crazy move in NASCAR. Yeah, I don't often go into auto racing, but this was too sick not to throw in. Ross Chastain, the driver of the number one, used a move he learned from playing NASCAR 2005 in putting himself into the wall and his gas pedal to the floor in speeding around the final turn to pass Denny Hamlin and finish in the top 5 to make it to the championship 4 field while at the Xfinity in the final lap at the Xfinity 500 in Martinsville, Virginia. Like that move, like it's probably something in NASCAR that's probably going to get banned at some point. But it's just like Denny Hamlin's just like that was sick. Like it was even to the point that even the driver who got passed on it was like, that was sick. Probably could be borderline illegal down the line, but that was sick. But my ultimate stud is Terry McLaurin for intercepting that crucial pass over former Defensive Player of the Year Stephon Gilmore to set up the game-winning touchdown for Heineke on that QB sneak against the Colts. And of course, McLaurin yelling post play during the timeout, "It's my city!" And
He
he
was
was
probably he was probably also yelling to Stephon Gilmore saying "My ball, my ball."
that too. But it was like he's an Indianapolis native who just caught a huge catch in his hometown and just completely saying, "This is my city." And it fired up like when you're having Terry McLaurin get fired up, and like it's like okay, Heineke brings a heart, like Heineke's heart just brings like new life, and you've got Terry McLaurin who's his favorite pass target, and McLaurin's making big plays like he has against the Packers and the Colts, and just firing up the entire team. it gets him somewhere, and that's why I say that Heineke's starting is bringing the Commanders new life.
I think personally they should have brought Heineke in. I think they should have started him, and then if things were to go awry, maybe Wentz. But yeah, I think
But then
Heineke is
it's
a
like it's
very
hard to
amazing.
tell what that really would have looked like going the other way around. I think
Yeah,
Wentz outplayed Heineke at training camp, and that's why he earned the spot.
yeah.
But then my dud, and I'll start with my dud because we'll kind of talk the Menino stuff later, or like my little take on that later. DJ Moore for his costly taking off of his helmet and on the game tying touchdown that caused the after the missed PAT during the penalty, causing the game between the Panthers and Falcons to go into overtime where the Panthers ultimately lost to the Falcons. I mean, a game basically got ripped away from the Panthers, but at the same time, DJ Moore has to be more disciplined. And last but not, and then I had an honorable mention of Nets player Yuta Watanabe putting in a dunk in the wrong basket. But granted, it was his momentum carrying him, but it's still shacked in a fool.
Honestly, he also should have. You know what? He should have been paying attention to the basket. You know what? I don't know. I heard you know, and he, that's what came to my mind as a joke.
No,
I'm
it's
sorry.
he went. It's like he went to grab it, but the problem is that gravity and his momentum carrying him forward from where he was, it just unfortunately led him going toward the basket as gravity was taking him down. Like that's just it was an unfortunate circumstance dunking into the wrong basket, but kind of in how you want to rebound that, you kind of don't want to have your momentum carrying you in that way.
Shacking a fool, man. Shacking a fool.
Yep. And then and then you're done, Ruckus.
All right. So the Giants referee Jeremy Boger, or Jerome Boger, I should say, not Jeremy, uh, mistakes the Seahawks for a professional baseball team that is in the same uh, area, the Seattle Mariners, for sideline interference.
Oh my goodness.
So think of
We
it
knew
this
that this was
way:
gonna happen.
if the Giants referee Jerome Boger said holding uh
There's a
offense
sideline interference
sideline
on
interference,
the
New York
Seattle
Yankees,
Mariners.
that'll be another 15 yards. Everybody and their mother is probably cracking up saying, "You idiot," and some other people that were probably not aware of sports that were just there to have fun were probably just cracking up too. Not dogging on those people, just saying it was a hilarious sight.
This takes me back to 2010 when Boston Mayor Tom Menino was in the middle of honoring Bobby Orr with his statue of the goal outside of TD Garden, where the mayor was talking of capturing an ionic moment instead of an iconic moment. And then the big quote here was Boston has an amazing set of remarkable athletes whose actions in the moment have become ionic, which was probably supposed to be said iconic, in sports. Havlicek stole the ball. Fisk waved the ball fair. Flutie launched the Hail Mary pass. Veritek split the uprights. Where do you think we went wrong here? Of course, it says today we honor the most brilliant Bobby Orr flying through the air, and who can forget that play against St. Louis as the Bruins beat the Blues to bring a Stanley Cup to Boston. But
I mean,
out of
Vertic
all
up
that I
the
said there,
uprights is a pretty big
Veritek
one.
split. Yeah, because you know exactly who that's supposed to be. Not Jason Veritek. He was probably trying to say Vinatieri. What was actually supposed to be was Adam Vinatieri, not Jason Veritek. But
Tisk
it's
tisk,
like
man, tisk tisk.
exactly.
Wouldn't it be New England instead of Boston though?
It, it's considered the Boston sports team, even though they play in Foxborough, which is really just outside the area.
Getting Smart Park, you know.
And
Sorry, I just had to
it
do it.
it's basically the Boston market area. That's why they refer it in there.
Is that
Boston
where you
sport.
get the lobster at at the park? You know, where your kids and everybody are at the harbor? I don't know. I need to stop doing that.
Yeah, but it was one of those things where yeah, it's. I mean, you primarily are getting your lobsters in Maine, but
Dude, I would kill for a lobster in Maine, to be honest.
yeah, that is true. But before we start getting our stomachs even hungrier than where we are, we probably need to close this show out.
Alright. Um this has been an episode of Ruckus and the Menace, episode 30 of our sports podcast. I am Ruckus.
And I'm Spanish the Menace.
And honestly, I apologize for the 2 hour and 30 minute episode, but it is what it
We
is.
knew
Good,
what we did. We knew what we did. It was
but
just a matter of
at the same time, it was a lot of fun doing this episode. I love my co-host, even though sometimes I do some stupid shit that makes him want to suffocate me with a pillow. But here we are.
deuces, guys.
Deuces.